Beautiful faces. You're going to hear some sounds. Last class, we got to have the Chihuahuas, and this class, we had they turned off all the power on my block, so I got to drive one town over to my dear friend Magalie's house, who has the lovely 1-year-old Sky. And so you're going to hear some of Sky, I'm sure, in the background. The sound of life. I got to watch Stephen Jenkinson talk, and there was a baby in the room, and we were in a really small room, and he never missed a beat. He was so unflustered, and it was such a teaching to see someone have so much capacity and make space and not be annoyed and frustrated and irritated that there was something there, but for it to become part of the experience and not distracting. It was an extraordinary thing. So apparently this is a theme for us, so we get to play with it. Alrighty, so I invite you to find your feet. Find your feet. And just really, as always, as you close your eyes and you come into this awareness of your body, and as you really, can you really feel the bottom of your feet? And can you feel that connection to what they are resting on right now? How well do you know the resource that you are resting upon? And can you just take a moment as you breathe and breathing in all the way down to the bottom of your belly, taking a moment to breathe in this connection to this resource that you're resting upon. I'm resting upon the body of a tree. I have no idea where that tree came from, but I'm resting upon a life that was once rooted and was then unrooted and creates another way for connection. So really allowing yourself to come into connection and relation with all the things around you. And because we're in this sewing, we're sewing our classes together, we're sewing our experiences together, I invite you to re-presence that piece that you committed yourself to in our last class, that piece that you know that you're going to be speaking for this week, or that you're listening for this week. And perhaps you want to allow that just to have a presence in your heart and to be really present with you during this class that we're about to step into. And then you might want to just, after your next inhale, really exhaling out anything that's in the way. You might have some stresses, some little things moving around. So just allowing yourself to release, put down anything that could be in the way of the good work we're coming together to do today. And as you are ready, coming forth to join together and celebrate. What a treat to get to have Justin 2 weeks in a row. This is the first time we've ever done anything like this. And I really do think it's a real treat to have this kind of continuity and to have this kind of opportunity for depth in terms of what you have to offer and what you have to bring to our space. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Leah. I'm so grateful to be with you all. I was just sitting here, and I'll just share this with you. As I was sitting here with my hands over my heart, as I do kind of in all the groups. And normally I kind of do this behind the scenes while they're introducing me or whatever, as I just really try to drop into the energy of the group. And I remember thinking this last time at the end of your group when we were going, and I remember feeling it right, and I just felt it right now again. I was like, oh, I love this group. Like that's how I felt right away. I was just like, I love this group. And I don't even know you all that well, but I'm with a lot of different groups, and I just want you all to know that you're radiating or creating a really strong web that I can feel just dropping into, and it's a privilege for me to drop into. It feels really nice for me to drop into as well. So I'm very grateful for that. And I'm just flashing back on, I think the last one was, I was like coughing like crazy, right? You guys were like, so, I don't know what was up with that, but I did speak the thing that needed to be spoken, and everything unfolded. So right now I am in Bali. I'm actually not in Bali. That is a lie. I keep saying I'm in Bali because I'm in between. So I'm on my way to Bali, but in order to go to Bali, you have to quarantine for 5 days in Jakarta, whether you have a vaccine or not, which makes not much sense, but you do, but it is, so it is. And so I'm on the first full day. Like I got here 24 hours ago, and I am really just having an interesting thing with my jet lag because I like got myself on schedule, and then now this is from 12 to 2 in the morning. And then so that I'm like, well, so much for that. But then tomorrow I have something else that starts at 4 a.m., you know, and so there were just things that were scheduled ahead of time. But I'm grateful, like what a joy that I get to be here and do this, and that I can, you know. I've always, I think it's a good tip that like one of my mentors gave me a long time ago was just like, no, none of this. Oh, I have to do this. I have to do this. No, I get to. How cool that I can do this, you know? And I just am really grateful to be in this space to share with you all. So we're in for a dynamic journey together. But before we begin, I need you all to remember my little rules of engagement here. So rule number one is, remember, this is not a TV show. We're here together live. So we will continue to feed each other and feel each other's energy, and you'll feed one another. One of the ways that we do that is if you hear me say anything that you want to remember, you can type those quotes in the chat box. Yes, you already got it, Dominique. And then we throw our ones up. We throw our ones up so everybody can do that. The ones in the air, to put a bunch of ones in the chat box. And if you weren't here for that last time, those ones in the chat box are how you kind of say like, yes, I'm with you. I got you. There's something that I like. There's something that I needed. And you can even like one each other, and you can talk in the chat box. It doesn't distract me at all. You can put questions in the chat box. It doesn't distract me at all. And, you know, obviously just don't go on some crazy left field, you know, tangent, but your comments in the chat box add a lot. So we'll be in this experience together. And today we're doing a really important talk as it relates to the power of diversity and mindfulness. And I think we've built up together as a group enough trust in one another to have this conversation in a really powerful way. And I think I might be, why can I see my Zoom screen? That is the weirdest thing. Hold on one second, something weird's happening. There we go. Okay. So we have built enough of a relationship with one another from this last talk to really dig in here. And we're going to dig in today and start with talking about the power to change. The power to change. And the reason why I start here with the power to change is because so many of us have experienced, because we're in the world of transformation and personal transformation and human potential and growth, how many of you have experienced a radical change in your own life or the lives of one of your clients or somebody that you work with? Can you put your ones up or your hands up or something in the chat box? A change that seemed impossible. A change that was like, this is probably never going to change. I don't know how this is ever going to change. This seems like a wall that cannot be overcome. And through the work, we've watched it change. Yet, isn't it? And so I see all of you, Ray and Janet and Miss Brittany in Iowa. Hello, always good to see you and everything. And Dominique, Cariana, Roxanne, Lisa, Megan, I see all of you, and I'll keep calling you out, Loke. And however, when we talk about change when it comes to social justice, racism, our family members who have isms that we may not agree with or that we think are harmful, how many of us then suddenly go, oh, that's probably never going to change? Inside, even though we want to say like, I believe in peace and I believe in love and I believe in, like, right, we got that. But somewhere inside, as it relates to some of these things, there's this subconscious belief running the show that, you know, those people, they're probably not going to change. They're never going to change. This racism is never going to end. Generations and generations, we're going to go ancestors and ancestors and ancestors and ancestors, and everyone's going to keep working for their entire lifetime to end this thing. And so why is it that we have this belief, we as a community who have seen incredible change and transformation, have this subconscious belief sometimes inside that certain things can't change. And the reason why this is important for me to name is, and Marianne Williamson was amazing at this, for any of you who were following her campaign trail, whether you were going to vote for her or not, or this or that, or your politics don't matter to me at all. But one of the things that she was inserting that I thought was incredibly powerful, and I think that was the most useful of her campaign trail, was she said, hey, spiritual people, if anybody's going to help this thing transform, it's us. We know what transformation really looks like. We know what it takes. We've sat in the fire of the shadow. We've looked at our deep truth. We know how much it takes to sit with the discomfort. We know how to hold ourselves with compassion. We know what the reflection is, the mirrors, all the things that we have to do to actually create that change. So let's jump in. Let's be a part of this so that we're not just sitting in the background and the world is suffering because we don't want to be political, right? And I have to say, I was like a part of this group. Like I was one of, I don't watch the news, I don't do this, I don't do that. I was there, right? I was totally there before 2016. And then I started asking, like, I think so many people finally kind of raised an eyebrow and said, what can I do? What can I do authentically that will be real and authentic to me, that doesn't go against my values, that doesn't put me in a position to do something that really doesn't feel aligned with who I am? But is there a way that I can make a contribution? Have any of you gotten there over the last few years of just wondering how you can step forward a little bit, even a little bit more? Yeah. And so this is where we are. And people often ask me, Justin, how is it that you are probably one of the most optimistic queer Black men that I've ever met? Because I really, like, my work is really not even, I'll give you a very specific quote here that I like to use, is there are lots of conversations about change, but that's very different than conversations that actually change something. And I think conversations about things are really important. Thank you, Leah, for the prayer hands. Like, I think conversations about things are really important, but that's not what I'm here to do with you today. And that's not the work that I'm even interested in doing. We can talk about racism all day. We can talk about the environment all day. We can brain dump, we can be pontificating scientifically about things all day and the philosophy all day and night. But that's very different than a conversation that actually changes something. And the conversation that I'm interested in having with you today, and the conversations that I'm interested in having in this space, are conversations that change something. And so I wrote an article it's almost been a year. I think it came out in July or August of last year, called Ending Racism: How to Change the World in One Generation. And I was very curious because after the George Floyd protests, and I'm getting a link for you guys, which is why you hear me talking. Give me 1 second. All right. So I'll put this link in. Leah. Ooh, Jesus, what am I doing here? Okay. You can pass this around. So it's endingracismtogether.com. And it has a pledge and an article. And I'm not going to go into the full article here, but I think it's a good read for those of you who are interested. And thank you, Lisa, that you saw this. And the reason I thought it was so fascinating is I was at Esalen, and for those of you who know, a spiritual retreat center in Big Sur. I was at Esalen for 6 weeks last year when they were closed, doing some diversity work with them. And by the way, Esalen has been doing a freaking incredible job training themselves on diversity and inclusion and change. It's been like top notch. So for those of you who are wondering about that, it's really, they're doing like reconciliation with the indigenous tribes, fully in it, twice a month, like the whole thing. It's really fascinating. And I'm grateful to be a part of that with them. And I was there and I was reading all the articles and the things that had come out about, there was all the New York Times best-selling books. There's Caste, and there was How to Become an Anti-Racist, and there was Me and White Supremacy, and there was all the things, right? And I'm reading all the books and I'm thinking, gosh, why is it that every single one of these books is coming from a perspective that is racism will never end. Why is everything coming from this perspective that this is lifelong work? That this is work that our ancestors have done and we will continue to do, and generations and generations and generations. And I sat there and I thought, God, I don't want to be doing this shit for the rest of my life. Like I'm just like, absolutely not, And I was just asking a question, and the question that I was asking in the baths at Esalen is I simply asked the question, why not? Why can't racism end? Why not? Racism is something that is a modern creation in the last 250 years. Racism being something where we distinguish and differentiate people based solely off of the color of their skin. It is a Western invention in the last few hundred years of all of human history. There's obviously been many ways that we have created in-groups and out-groups over history, religion being the most common way, and gender being another very common way. But we've created in-group, out-groups. This is a thing that unfortunately human species do. But I believe that this phenomenon of creating in-groups and out-groups based on the color of somebody's skin is something that can absolutely be changed. I don't understand why it wouldn't be able to be changed. And it was really fascinating. There's a book called Caste by Isabel Wilkerson that I recommend highly to everybody. I'll put a link in here later for you all. And she told this amazing story where Isabel Wilkerson wrote The Warmth of Other Suns or something like that, another book that's really popular and a best-selling book. And she was interviewing this young African woman from Africa. And the African woman said, "We don't have Black people in Africa." And Isabel's looking at her, and Isabel's a Black woman. And Isabel's like, "What do you mean? Like, that must sound like the weirdest comment ever. Like, of course you have Black people in Africa. That's like where all the Black people are, right?" And she goes, "No, we have Nigerian people in Africa. We have Ghanaian people in Africa. We have Yoruba people in Africa. You only become Black or white when you go west." You literally and think about people in Europe, right? They don't really generally classify themselves as I'm white. It's like, oh, the Germans and the Poles, and they have, their whole thing that they do there, right? The French and the this and the that. And so it's really a Western, and it is obviously, there is a lot of racism in Europe, obviously. But overall, this was a thing that started in the West, polarizing people into two colors that they are not, when really they're shades of ivory and beige and brown. And going on the opposite ends of the spectrum and saying, here's Black, here's white. Definitions that are constantly changing over and over and over. Italians once were not considered white all the way up until the 60s, right? And it's these definitions that are constantly shifting. And so in my article, I just constantly pose this question: why not? And what might it be? I think once you have a problem that is happening for long enough, the question has to shift from what's causing the problem to what's causing the problem to persist in the first place. Why is it persisting? If this is a problem that most people agree is not good, why does it persist? And so my article poses some ideas on why it might persist, meant to be a little bit, kind of make you think a little bit, and meant to be a little bit, it's not meant to be mischievous in any way or triggering in any way, but I think it turns some things upside down for people. And then if you, at the end of the article, it invites people to sign a pledge called the Ending Racism Pledge that we've had thousands and thousands and thousands of people sign, which I'll invite you all to as well. So again, that's at endingracismtogether.com. And so again, people will ask me, Justin, how can you be so optimistic as a Black man, as a Black queer man? Like, what's the deal? And the reason why, and this is another part of my story that I think will surprise many of you, is I grew up in this family. So this is, how did I get to that side? Oh, that's me. Okay, so here's little Justin, which you've seen before. And here is my mom and dad. So my dad is African American. Originally, his family, like many generations back through ancestry, we've tracked to West Africa, but in the United States for many generations. And obviously through slavery, the whole thing, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. And my mom, this is a part I want you all to track very closely as I'm talking about. My mom is Persian and Middle Eastern, but adopted into an Italian Catholic family. And my mom was adopted when she was 2 days old into this family. This is the family that raised me. This is my family that I've grown up with my whole life. This is my mom. In the very front, you see my grandmother, Betty. This picture is very old, from I think probably the 80s at some point, and or even earlier than that potentially. And my grandmother's in the very, very front, Betty, and there's all of her brothers and sisters who came over to the United States from Sicily on a boat. Okay, so when I'm talking to you Italian Catholic, I'm talking that kind of Italian Catholic, okay? Pasta dinners on Sundays. My great grandmother, who's there, who we called Big Nana, is the one, she's the oldest one, which you can probably see in kind of the very light colored thing with all the white hair. She, she used to breastfeed all the kids on the block. It was like that kind of a thing, which was like normal back then. And they all lived, very close to one another. And so this is the family that adopted my mom. And when my mom, and mind you, they had Black friends, they came from struggle themselves over to the United States, to the East. They came straight into Pittsburgh, California. Most people don't know there's a Pittsburgh in California, but in the East Bay, that's where I'm from originally. And when my mom decided she was going to marry this Black man, this family had a Sunday dinner, which they always had after church. Mind you, this is after church, of course. And they decide that if my mom chooses to go forward with marrying my dad, that they are going to disown her and never speak to her again. And mind you, this is a family that had Black friends, but their daughter, no. How could she marry this, N-word? That's not going to happen. So the whole family gathered the meeting. They called my mom in and they told her, and they thought they were going to be able to call it off. My mom, being my mom, said, peace out. I mean, obviously it was much harder for her than that. And my mom got married and nobody in her family was there. And this is my great grandfather, who we called my big daddy in my family, walking my mom down the aisle because not one person in her entire family came to her wedding. And it was so much so that